don't expect somebody else to do for you what you're going to have to do for yourself anyway, right? What is going on, guys? How you doing? Welcome to this video. Today I want to talk about 3 DJ business killers that I learned the hard way. Let's get into it. What's going on? How you doing? Welcome to this channel. My name is Scott King. I run a DJ company in Orlando, Florida, www.djsorlando.com if you want to check that out. I also have a coaching business, www.coachscottking.com, where I teach the mindset, NLP, hypnosis, and internet marketers to help grow my business. And well, here we are. If you guys want to learn more, make sure to visit the website. But I tell you what, I want to talk about 3 major things that have come across my conscious lately that could be, holding you back. So let's talk about killer number 1, the loyalty trap, right? Thinking that loyalty means security. Let's say you're doing a lower paying gig and you're at a pool, and then all of a sudden you see some DJ, he comes in on a day that you're not working, and he comes out there and he starts juggling and doing backflips and all this crazy stuff, right? And then you start looking at it like, oh man, these guys are going to like him more. Or I better learn how to do these things. And then it becomes a little bit of a trap, right? Okay, so let's say you're out there to do your best to stand out, and you start comparing yourself to somebody else. Like, oh man, this guy does this. Instead of like shining in your own light, like you want to adapt to become something else. And this happens like in the DJ community all the time. Oh, this person did this, now I have to do this. And then this person does this. And at the same time, let's say you do all that stuff, and then you learn all these amazing skills, right? You level up your game, and that manager like moves on to another company or gets fired or whatever the case may be, right? They took a promotion. They're no longer in charge of who hires the DJs that next time around, all right? Say pool parties are seasonal, and then the next go around we get a new manager now, and then you've learned how to do all these things, and then, well, that manager has a cousin or something that's a DJ and you did all that work to get all that security, and all of a sudden it's just gone, right? I was talking to one of the DJs. He's like, yeah man, I could come in a parachute, light myself on fire, and then have everybody going wow, and then it could be all for nothing. Or maybe you say you want a raise because, hey, look, I'm doing all these crazy things, and the raise just never comes. Like, oh, it's not in the budget, but still you're doing all these things to keep like a lower paying gig, right? So what would be better, right? Doing the gig as it comes up, because nothing's promised to you other than what's in the contract, right? So you do the gig, you do the best that you can. If you want to level up with your skills, do it for yourself. Don't do it for somebody else that has control over whatever the predicament is, right? So I don't know how many years I spent doing that and leveling up my game, and yes, I got really good, and at the same time it could all be taken away from you in a moment. And then if you haven't leveled up your game, like in marketing, right? So if you build your own business and start collecting your own leads and then working hard versus building your own company versus building somebody else's company, or being at the mercy of somebody else like a hiring manager. So that all happens. And like over at the theme parks, managers change all the time, right? And sometimes you might be doing a gig and it's not how good you are. It's like, who do you know? Who's going to get you through that door? How much do you owe that person when they do get you through that door, right? As long as they're not lying to you or taking advantage of you and it's a win-win situation, then that might work out for you. But when it becomes, oh, you better do this and you better do that, or you're not going to get this if you don't do that, and where's the breaking point? Where does it stop? Do you keep getting raises every time you do this? No, you just get security of having the gig. So what if that gig goes away? What if the club closes? What if they decide not to have that show anymore, right? Like, then what? You're just moving on to the next thing instead of like building your own company and having your own referrals and calling your own shots. And if you don't succeed, well, then what else can you do to better yourself, right? Versus like building out someone's business. The only thing that's owed to you, right, is what's in the contract, right? So if you do that gig and you're thinking you're going to get more, that may be true. Yet at the same time, they don't owe you anything more than what's in the contract. Now, there was a time I auditioned to be over at a casino, and I was super excited about it, and they're like, oh yeah, they're going to pick you, but I was talking to the DJ, I wasn't talking to the hiring manager. And then he's like, oh, I'll get you on the next one. So it wasn't even in that guy's control to like make sure that I got the position or not. And I ended up not getting the position. And that's when I kind of like changed like a whole thing of my life. I was like, oh, they hired this guy because he fit the look, and I was overweight at that time. So it was like, well, how much can I lose? And if you lose all that weight and you still get more gigs, I mean, I guess that works out. But how far do you go until you hit the breaking point, right? So just be careful. If you're over delivering, right, and you're giving all these services and doing all these things, and now you're doing backflips, right? Does the pay increase? I mean, did you just make it that much harder for someone else to replace you? Does that work in your best benefit? And if you do all that work and there's no gig anyway, does it matter, right? Like, are you building for what it's worth, right? So the best bet is to level up your skills wherever that you can, but build your own brand, right? A lot of people get confused. Like, they'll go out to somebody else's gig and start handing out their own card. And that's like a cheap way to do things, right? Like, you wouldn't want to undercut somebody who got you through the door, but you could build your own thing by doing your own marketing, your own videos, right? You could build your own thing, right? So just keep that in mind. That's killer number one. I just wanted to make sure I spent a little bit of time on that. And then killer number two, right? The institutional, framework. And I only bring that up because I was having a conversation with another one of my DJs, and I was like, hey, man, in order to do some of these events, right, I have to go get fingerprinted. It's like $80 a person. I could spend all this time training somebody and get them fingerprinted, to get them approved, to get them through the door, spend time, money, and energy. And then these, some of these guys could fall off because, they have other plans to do things with their life, right? Like, there's tons of people that I had, fingerprinted. It's $80 a fingerprint. There's probably like 5 or 6 IDs that I have next to me of money I spent to get people fingerprinted so they could go on certain properties. And at the same time, when you actually get to the booking person who does these things, like, oh yeah, can you give us a discount? Like, do you realize how much work it took me to get filed in with the government, to get people fingerprinted and approved to even go on property? And then you're like, oh yeah, we're working with a limited budget. Well, that's not very beneficial. It doesn't fit into my business model, right? Like, yeah, guaranteed that I want work throughout the year, and I want to work hard to have more things available. And at the same time, I have to put quality talent in front of you, and then you're looking for a discount. That only works if I have tons of gigs coming in and I can take less of a profit on some of the gigs. And at the same time, we do run a business for profit. So where does that make sense? And sometimes when I talk to, we'll say teachers. When I talk to teachers, I have a hard time, grasping like their model of the world. So I have to, as a good salesperson, right, sit down with them, figure out what they're thinking, how they're thinking, and what direction would be best to meet somewhere in the middle. Because I could be on the one far end of the spectrum, and they could be on the other far end of the spectrum. And I'll be like, hey, look, I know you have a certain way of dealing with things. Yet at the same time, I had to do all this work to get here, and sometimes you want rewards for the work you had to do to get there, right? So just keep that in mind. And on top of that, you still have to be good. You still have to follow the regulations of the company and all that stuff. And again, it could just be swept underneath your feet for all gone away, right? And plus you have, people that are out there that are underbidding things just to get their foot in the door, and then over delivering, and then like, what is that all worth, right? So they do all this work, make barely any profit, but they look good on Instagram, right? So keep that in mind, right? When you have to do extra work to make sure that you're even in front of somebody to present your idea or present your offer, right? Make sure it works out, as a win-win situation. Hey, look, I did all this work, so I should, at least be guaranteed to be able to put my bid in. And even if you put your bid in, whoever's in charge of doing that event, it changes from year to year, especially with high schools, right? They have a group of students that plan for prom or homecoming, and then that group of students is gone, and then you got to start all over again. Or whoever's in charge of the PTA, that person could have just moved on. And then, you better deliver some sort of a outstanding service so that the students, want to hire you back. And then at the same time, they could not have the budget for the next go around or have a different idea. And then all of a sudden you're out anyway. So just keep that in mind as well. So number 3, right? The empty promise game, right? Low pay for future work. Does that work for you? If you're getting consistent work, but it's low pay, I understand you have bills to pay and everything, and yet you still want to level up your skills. Just keep in mind where you're going, right? Because you could spend years and then all of a sudden it's gone, and then what? What are you building up? You know, do you have an out plan, or do you want to build up your own business? Keep that in mind. And just remember, somebody could promise you something, but if it's not signed, even sometimes I get a signed contract and they want to cancel, even though I could hold them to the full amount. I mean, they're just going to look at you with a bad taste, right? If they, especially like a wedding, let's say they plan like 12 months out and they cancel 8 months out. And like, well, you know, the retainer fee's gone, which is why I keep my retainer fee kind of low. At the same time, you know, you pretty much, you know, as long as they give you enough notice, you could let whatever DJs know that they're not going to have a gig that day, and they'll catch them on the next one, especially if it's a busy day. So you want to make sure you set the proper expectations too, right? So we'll do X, Y, and Z for this amount of money. Keep that in mind. Understand what your worth is. And remember, the market sets the price. And if you want to increase your price more, build up more of a resume, more of a something else to fall back on. There was a situation where I was help building a talent agency, and I was all in, right? So the way it worked was like, hey, look, I'll help build up your company, and you know, I want the gigs because, you know, I have, you know, a wife and a kid on the way and all that stuff. So when things started to go south, I was like, oh man, I had a realization. I was like, well, what's going to happen if this person decides that he's not going to give me any gigs anymore just because he didn't like the way I looked at him or something like that? And that was something I just couldn't live with, especially with a kid on the way. I wasn't going to, you know, put my time, energy, and money into somebody building somebody else up when they clearly had not my best interest at heart. So keep that in mind as well. Now, the realization, are you working hard for yourself, or are you working hard for somebody else? Are you leveling up your skills but still keeping your mind open for what else is possible, and not putting all your eggs in one basket? Take control of your own destiny. So just remember, don't expect somebody else to do for you what you're going to have to do for yourself anyway, right? And are you building your own business? You know, that makes sense to you, right? I worked for a company, and, you know, they had a certain look that they wanted, they had a certain energy that they wanted, they had X, Y, and Z, you know. Sometimes it was like, oh, do you need a female DJ, or do you need a different ethnicity DJ? And I was like, hey man, you know, I could spend all this time in the world being the best at what I do, and yet not get the gig because I didn't fit some sort of profile. That was not how I wanted to live my life. And I didn't realize I was living my life for a very long time, until I had a rude awakening, and it was like, oh, you're not getting this gig because of X, Y, and Z, but don't worry, I'll take care of you for the next one. And then I would keep track of my, you know, how much I made throughout the years, and it would decline. It's like, I'm doing all this extra work, I'm training your guys, and he'd be like, well, you could do the gig in the lobby to do video shows because you're the only one to do it. And then the other guy would get the more expensive gig. And I was like, well, I trained this guy to do the more expensive gig, and yet because I can do music videos and the other people can't, I'm being punished because that gig pays less, but I can't do the other gig because that's overlapping times. So that doesn't make any sense, right? So are you taking control of your own destiny? Are you making things make sense? You know, if you don't get angry about something, or if you don't have enough momentum behind something, it's not going to happen, right? So that's how I was able to build my own business. And keep in mind, if you're going to have failure, make it on your own terms. Make it on your own terms, right? If you put a bunch of money into advertising and it doesn't work for you, like what I did, that's all right. I did that. I made that choice. So create your own opportunities. Put yourself out there. And if you need help along the way, I've got some answers for you. Guys, you've been great. Thanks for watching the video. I will catch you on the next one. And visit the website. Follow, like, subscribe. www.coachscottking.com.